Well. What a week! What a week it's turning out to be. Not only have, of course, I introduced you all to the crazy world of Unheard, but we're also today going to cover the Critic, the quote UK's most sensible magazine. And I must correct myself because it was not Unheard that refers to their opinion givers as intellectual artillery pieces. No, it is actually the Critic that refers to them as intellectual artillery pieces. So today, I am actually going to be responding to a guy who wrote an article on the Critic by a guy named by a guy by the name of Chris Bayliss, I think it is. By the way, if Chris sees this and he would like to have an actual discussion about this on stream, I am more than happy to do that with him. I would like to have this conversation because I do not think his take that he has given on Ukraine here is realistic. Like, I think he is completely unrealistic because he does not consider the consequences, I think, of what he is really saying about how we have to be, quote, realistic on Ukraine. So this is the article he wrote, of course, in the Critic. I am not going to respond to it all. I'm not going to go through it all because, quite frankly, it boils down to the fact that he even makes fun of. And I want to point this out. Where is it? So here we are. So he comes to the consequence of, oh, but when I'm realistic about Ukraine and what's going on, I always get the response of, which bits of your own territory would you be willing to negotiate away? Um, and to which I would say, you've got that wrong. It's which bits of Ukraine's territory should they be willing to negotiate away? I do not think Ukraine should be in a position to negotiate any of its territory away. I think all this territory is fully Ukraine's. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it is up to the Ukrainian people and their negotiators who and what territory might be worth giving away. But you also, I think, completely miss the mark of what more of this means. Because how much territory should Ukraine be willing to give away? At the moment, you are looking at Ukraine losing 20% of its coastline. With the loss of Mariupol, that now only leaves Odessa with its only port, to which something else Russia has aims on. Now, you do admit in your article that Russia is at least still going to be a belligerent nation. So, one thing you completely miss, if you are going to be realistic about Ukraine, what does this mean for the future security of Ukraine? Should we, as the UK, go, right, in the future, Ukraine, we know you've signed this peace deal, but we are going to commit. We're going to ask you, can we build a runway, a military base in your territory? And we are going to permanently station RAF and army units there in Ukraine to basically say to Putin, if you go into Ukraine ever again, you will have to take on the British army. You will have to take on the RAF. You will be at war with us. Like, how willing to commit to that are we going to be? Are we going to commit to that? Or are we actually going to say, okay, we are going to allow Ukraine into NATO? Because one thing you do not mention in this is you are right in the fact that pointing out this war has been going on since 2014. And one of the things that Ukrainians have been saying, which almost never gets brought up, is we want security guarantees for the future. We do not want to be fighting this war again in 10 years' time. So we want future security guarantees. If you are going to be realistic about bringing the war to Ukraine to an end, we have to be willing to give the Ukrainian people serious security guarantees so that they are not fighting this war again in 10 years. So that Vladimir Putin does not come back and refight this war. Because we know full well, even now, Vladimir Putin is still insisting on the pretty much de-armament of Ukraine and occupation of a lot of its territory. Is that acceptable to you? And of course, we know it would be an incredibly brutal occupation. Not only that, but what about the Ukrainians that get left behind in that now, taken territory by Russia? Because there is going to be a massive diaspora of those Ukrainians who said, we've lived under occupation for this long. We do not want to live under this. We are going to go live in Ukraine. What happens to them? At least if those who are lucky enough to be able to do that, what happens to all those that get left behind? Are they going to end up creating an IRA type movement that resists, Russian occupation, that maybe eventually gives Vladimir Putin to say, oh, well, look at all this, terrorism that's going on. We're going to have to go and reinvade Ukraine again. Right? No, I think you have not been realistic about Ukraine at all. I do not think you have been realistic about the consequences of some of the stuff that you advocate for, which is, oh, well, we've got to compromise. But again, compromise on what? What have we got to compromise on? You don't seem to really talk about what those compromises are going to be. You talk a lot about, oh, well, now things are going to have to change because of Trump. I agree with you on that. Things are potentially going to have to change on this. There is a very big likelihood, given the fact that we have seen a lot of Trump's allies from J.D. Vance and so on, basically saying no more Ukraine aid and throwing them under the bus. That means we as the West, and Europe in particular, is going to have to step up and try and fill that gap. And it is possible to do so. It's going to take a lot of money, but it is possible to do so. Not only that, you've had the recent change in the fact that North Korean troops have been confirmed fighting on the front lines in the past couple of weeks. South Korea potentially now looking at getting even more involved in this conflict. Japan also rethinking its stance on, this war in Ukraine. Because, that missile technology that they have given to North Korea now threatens the security of Japan. How realistic have you really been thinking about all those consequences that now has on that region? So I am more than willing to sort of have a conversation with you if you want to have a conversation. But no, I would like to have that. Not a lot of you guys are actually willing to have this conversation. I've found out in the past. But no, I'm very willing to take sort of the pro-Ukrainian side and what we really should be doing and what we should be guaranteeing for Ukraine's future. Remember, we gave the Ukrainians guarantees that if they gave up their nukes, we would protect them, that we would provide defensive, we would help, defend and protect them. Now, are we fulfilling those obligations even now? And of course, what does this mean maybe for future obligations? Because the Ukrainians are very, very clear they want future security guarantees. What should those future security guarantees actually look like? So, as always, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Like I say, leave your comments down below. Hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe button, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.